my husband and I bought our first home together, a dilapidated 100-year-old house, we would never have imagined that there would be mysterious treasures hidden inside waiting for us to discover. Not the sort of treasures that would pay off our mortgage, mind you, but priceless nonetheless. The for sale sign outside said ripe for renovation, which was a little bit of marketing humour that was scarily accurate. There were animal feces in the carpets, maggots on the kitchen floor, broken sewage pipes, and a century of cockroaches hiding in all of the dark places. There were car bodies strewn all over the backyard and a drug den in the garage. David and I were not strangers to hard work though, so we rolled up our sleeves and got on with the job of stripping the house bare so we could turn it into a family home one day. We pulled back the old flooring, layers and generations of multicoloured linoleum, alternating with old newspapers that gave us a pretty clear indication of which decade each new floor had been laid. We loved reading the articles in the old newspapers dating back to the 1940s, talking about the Second World War. But 50-year-old news was nothing compared to what we discovered next. In the kitchen, when we pulled back the lino, we found 3 bank books dating back to the 1940s and 50s, together with some cash and coins. The balances in the bank books were more than £2,000, enough money back in those days to buy 4 brand new houses. The cash was £20, which was about a month's wages for a working class family. A huge amount of money to be hiding away underneath the floorboards. Now, David and I actually made that discovery more than 20 years ago, when the internet had just been born and social media was something we did over the back fence, on the telephone and at the post office. It was also before I was all that interested in history, mystery or community. I was 24 years old and life was all about making my own history, not investigating somebody else's. Last year, when I was preparing myself for my 30th high school reunion, indulging myself in nostalgia, I rediscovered the money that I had tucked away for 20 years. It was 2017 and the World Wide Web had us in its clutches. With the invention of online social media, a whole new method of communication had opened itself up to those of us who preferred to engage in conversation from the comfort of our own space. I was 24 years older and had become a writer with a passion for online communication and engagement in a world where people had started to hide behind their screens. On a whim, I decided to post a photograph of the bank books and the money on social media. I shared my discovery with a large online group of local history enthusiasts. That one post was all it took to knock my world upside down. Over 1,000 people responded to my request for help. They stopped watching Netflix, they stopped scrolling through news feeds aimlessly. They didn't just click like or love or wow. They started asking questions, they started telling stories, and they started sharing ideas. They turned into engaged and curious detectives. Within 48 hours, we had uncovered the identities of 2 of the 3 bank book owners, linking the family to local iconic places of interest, significant events, and fascinating people dating back over 100 years. Elders came out of the community who had worked in the banking sector, the post offices, the railways, anywhere this family had had a connection to. These people came and shared their stories with us. We became so busy on that local history site that we thought we'd better start our own local investigative group. which now has more than 1,300 members in it. Think of the world's largest conference table in a virtual detective agency. We had a chat room, we still have a chat room, full of curious people looking at mysteries from 1,000 different angles. It was really exciting. We stopped working, we stopped eating, we stopped cooking, while we started to search for answers. The questions started rolling in. Our devices were pinging every few minutes. When I couldn't answer somebody's question, another person would come and answer the question. If we needed to find out about lifestyle of the 1950s, or banking processes, or the value of old money, there would always be somebody there to answer the questions. When we needed to access old documents, there would be someone who would go and access them from archives and share that with the group. If we needed to find missing persons, someone would reach into their own pockets to pay for birth, death, and marriage certificates. The stories just poured in. It was like the people we were investigating had left a trail of breadcrumbs for us, leading to clues that would take us to the right people at the right time. It was quite a magical time. What we were doing was sharing nostalgia with photographs, stories, ideas, and connections. Every single person in our project team was treated with respect and valued. Every single idea was tabled and analysed. Not one comment was left hanging in the air. So it was about this time that conventional media got wind of our unusual investigation. And radio interviews and TV news stories brought family members, living descendants of the people we were investigating, into our lives. And they helped us to put the pieces together, find all the missing pieces, and together we made a family tree of more than 250 people, dating back to the early 1800s. Within a couple of months, we had uncovered the whole history of my house and local area, dating back to the first white settlers. We had even found some correspondence between those early immigrants. And then we started investigating other people's mysteries. My next door neighbours, for example, had found an old marble headstone underneath their house while they were renovating. They came over and asked me if I could share a picture of it with my investigative team. Within 24 hours, we had located the original owner of that headstone, buried in an unmarked grave in our local cemetery. And even better, we had found living descendants of this man who had never met one another. So we were able to make a family reunion of sorts happen the day we reinstated the headstone. Our investigations have also led us to uncover some of the seedier parts, shall I say, of our local history. Newspaper articles and theories pertaining to the third bank book, whose owner we still haven't tracked down yet, have linked us to some pretty horrific local murders, brothels, theft, and fraudulent activities, which generated a whole bunch more stories and connections in the community. My favourite story, though, was told to us by one of the members of the group, who said one Sunday morning she was reading the newspaper and she came across an article that had a photograph of a house on it. And she recognised the house as one she had been born in and that her great-grandparents had lived in and her grandmother had lived in. She read the article with so much interest. They talked about the history of the house and what had happened during its lifetime. And she was fascinated until she got the bit that said it had been run as a brothel. She was sort of even less fascinated when she found out it had been run as a brothel while she was living in it, while her grandmother was living in it, and while her great-grandparents... grandparents were living in it. So you can only imagine what the conversation was like at their dinner table that night when they shared that information. Unwittingly, by using social media as the platform for our investigation, we have been leaping over the usual barriers to communication, providing equitable access and a safe place for people to share their stories and ideas. If we had been face to face, it would have been a logistical nightmare. Can you imagine 1,000 people all sharing their ideas verbally at the same time, wanting to be heard? Our team consists of people aged between 9 and 99 years old. Children have been sharing their thoughts, theories and ideas. They have been interviewing their grandparents and speaking to their neighbours. The generations have been engaging and the community has been connecting. Every single piece of information and every single voice has been listened to and heard. Our group is made up of volunteers. We're all doing it because we love it. There is nobody doing it for any other reason than interest and love. There's always somebody there to hold the fort, and the only deadlines that we have are motivated by curiosity. Social media has also given many of us the opportunity to shine within the written word, when the spoken one can be so difficult for some of us. Believe it or not, I suffer from social awkwardness at times, like now. And the written, my voice, see, right now, sometimes my voice doesn't come across in the way I'd like it to, and my brain doesn't engage at the same rate as my voice. Not dissimilar to many people I know. Writing has changed all of that for me. The ability to organise my thoughts on paper or on a screen, to rewrite if I need to delete if I need to, has been a social game changer for people like me. Trust me when I say, if I could have written out my speech and had it on that screen behind me and had you all reading it right now, I'd have been a lot happier. One of the most attractive things of this project has been the ability to engage people who have become disconnected from their community, their families or their friends because of where they work, where they live, their social situation, parenthood, age or disability. It's also been a really amazing opportunity for the internet technology to pull people together in a world that's complaining that we're all being torn apart. Yeah? So speaking of being torn apart, I don't want you guys to tear apart your houses looking for a mystery to start investigating. You could start by inviting your family, friends, neighbours to join a social media page that has common interests, common goals, a place to connect safely, and inspire their inner detective. Share photographs, black and white ones that you have at home, of people, places that you don't know anything about, that you need some more information about. Pictures of keepsakes that you have, heirlooms that you don't know the background to. Ask the questions that you've always wanted to ask before the people who have the answers are no longer with us. My discovery didn't lead to $1 million stash in a bank account somewhere waiting for me to claim. There was no hidden treasure in the literal sense, hidden under the liner of my house. What I found was a unique and unusual way for people in the community to engage and connect with each other in a safe environment. When I first put that post up on social media, I had no idea I was about to walk into such a rich and vibrant community. One by one, the people in the project team have thrown their wealth of experience, skills, knowledge, and love onto the table, where we've all shared it equally. And none of us would have been able to find the answers to the questions by ourselves. We created a non-judgmental environment where people of all ages, all social situations, all personality types could come together for a common cause. We provided each other with social and intellectual nourishment. That was the treasure, and that was the pot of gold. Thank you.